Hi, I'm Tim Courtney, and I'm a filmmaker. Welcome to my art guide, where I'm going to talk a lot about creating visual dialogue by finding emotional connections to your subject. Hopefully it's not going to be as dry and boring as it sounds. I'm a filmmaker or film director based in Glasgow, where I live and share a studio with my wife, who is an illustrator. And we have a dog called Jeffers, who is a dog who does various dog things.
Amen.
Over the years, I've directed many short films, music videos and commercials. Most recently, I've moved into directing television for the BBC in the form of Scotland's favourite continuing drama, River City. I'm also currently developing my first feature film, after my last short film won me one of these. I'm not gonna lie, I am pretty damn proud of that. But I would be lying if I said that becoming a filmmaker was all I wanted to do since birth. In fact, my career could have ended up looking so very different. In a lot of ways, this is what makes my work inherently mine. That all sounds very vague and mysterious, but to really understand how I approach my work today, I kind of need to take you on a little bit of a journey. Okay, so my parents have this international romantic love story. My dad is Scottish from the tiny village outside Inverness called Ardasir. He was a soldier, and in the 80s he was posted to Hong Kong, which is where he met my mum, a Filipina from Manila, the not so small capital city of the Philippines. And Hong Kong is where they fell in love and got married. But about a year later, I was born in Tidworth, which is all the way back in the UK where we lived for a bit. We also lived in places like Belfast and Munster, amongst others. As you might guess, due to my dad's occupation, we moved around quite a bit. So growing up, it was quite difficult getting to know new places, make new friends and new schools, in places where I was almost always the only kid of colour, which of course has its own issues. I always felt like an outsider, which I guess is why my films always concentrate on characters that feel that way. But after a lot of moving around, my mum got tired and we eventually moved back to Inverness, where my parents still live today. So, what does a beige kid with not many friends do with his childhood? Well, like most wee boys, I played with action figures. I love making up my own stories starring characters from Ghostbusters, Thundercats, He-Man, Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. Okay, apparently ninjas were way too violent for British kids in the 80s and 90s. Whenever my mum forced me to go outside to play, I would mostly reenact my favourite scenes from Indiana Jones movies. I had a sun hat, a belt I'd use as a whip, and a cap gun. And use this old wooden bench my mum had in the garden to ride like an elephant. Yeah, Temple of Doom was my favourite. But only at the time. I guess it seems obvious in hindsight, but that never really felt like the early telltale signs of a career. No one in my family saw me playing with action figures and said,
"You know what? I bet he grows up to make movies."
Nope, that's because I was a really young age, I was quite good at drawing. I absolutely loved to draw and paint, so of course it became my favourite subject at school. I also liked creative writing and music at high school, but I absolutely lived for getting stuck into those cheap powder paints. I even spent all my spare time drawing and painting too. Like a lot of teens, I really liked graphic novels. Not so much the superhero stuff, but the standalone books that were like storyboards to a film. So I even tried my hand at illustrating some of my own. I mean, they were all terrible, but I had fun making them. At the tender age of 17, fresh from high school, I realised my dream. There are a few trials and tribulations along the way, but in 2000, I finally made it through the doors at Gray's School of Art in Aberdeen. And that is where I ultimately fell out of love with painting. Look, it's not that I wasn't good at it. I just didn't love it enough to withstand art school levels of scrutiny. I just didn't enjoy it anymore. So this left me with something of an existential crisis. What the hell do I do now? So I switched focus from painting to something called visual communication, a subject that encapsulates many mediums in which to communicate ideas in a visual way. I guess the clue's in the title. VisCom gave me a chance to explore new things like graphic design, illustration, photography, and eventually video. From that very first video project, I realised the potential for making art through the lens of a camera, and its relation to sound as it's presented onto the wall or a television. From then on, I was hooked. That's when I realised, I was never in love with drawing and painting. I was in love with visual storytelling. and I'd just found my medium. Right after my honours degree show, I won a scholarship to study my master's at Duncan of Jordanston in Dundee, but after that, well, after almost 6 years, it was finally time to say goodbye to that cosy blanket, the safety and security of art school, and head into the bleak wilderness of the real world. Okay, so real life isn't that bad. It's more the expectations I had of graduating having opportunities open up for me. And, well, to tell the truth, I had to make them open up for myself. The early years felt like a whole lot of rejection. That's because there was a whole lot of rejection. So what does a recent art school graduate getting rejection left, right and centre do to keep a roof over their head? Well, for me, I worked in a coffee shop. I was lucky to work in a place that at the time was one of the most important cultural hubs in Aberdeen. It was a cafe that had exhibitions monthly and live music twice a week. I spent 7 years there where my main creative outlet started to shift to music. Okay, bear with me, I know what you're thinking. I just spent all this time telling you how I grew up loving to draw, only to find out further down the line it was actually visual storytelling. And now what? I'm suddenly a musician. Well, what I neglected to tell you up to this point, admittedly for comedic and dramatic effect, is that I was in various guitar bands throughout art school. Towards the late 2000s, I formed a band called Caterwaul with an art school friend and a couple of friends from the local music scene. We were described as a cinematic post-rock band by our underground following. We focused more on live performances and the recordings, using textures of layered guitars, passages of extreme quiet, and building to huge crushing moments of heavy, discordant distortion. It was a chance for me to interpret personal stories and emotions in a lyrical way, and then to reinterpret those lyrics sonically. Each song was like scoring a film using major, minor, or discordant sounds, various tempos and time signatures to elicit an emotional connection, with a focus on texture rather than melodies and hooks. Yeah, okay, it was as pretentious as it sounds, but it was a great creative outlet. A prolific form of storytelling to an audience of hundreds. Most importantly for me though, it was the first time I was creating any sort of art that truly felt personal. I guess what I'm trying to say is, I had found my voice. So what if I applied that to film, my favourite medium? Okay, look, I really love making music and performing, but it never really felt like my calling. I still wanted to make films, and badly. I applied to film school a couple of times and, well, not so much as an interview, I'm afraid, and those funding applications weren't faring any better. At some point I realised I wasn't doing myself any favours living so far away from Scotland's creative industries, so I moved to Glasgow in 2011. And with a whole new network of filmmakers and collaborators, I started making more work, including a short film called Sunsets and Silhouettes, which got me a BAFTA New Talent Award nomination for Best Original Music. That's right, I didn't stop writing music. I juggled various full-time day jobs over the years before I eventually ended up at the Arches Theatre as their in-house photographer, videographer and graphic designer. It was a great creative job that also afforded me enough income and time to devote to my own practice. It was the holy grail. What more can an artist want, right? It seemed like the perfect fit for me. That is, until it was unceremoniously shut down. So what does a filmmaker do to keep a roof over their head when they've no funding and they've just lost their job? The fact is, I didn't know. So I started working freelance making videos for musician friends. One such musician who I knew from playing shows in Aberdeen and as a regular customer in my coffee shop was Catherine Joseph. Catherine invited me to make a video for one of her first singles, The Worm. She didn't have any money to fund it at the time, so me and some friends chipped in to make something worthy of being held beside her music. Now, listen, I don't usually champion working for exposure, but when it's for friends and it's in the vein of making something good, then that's worth its weight in gold for me and my collaborators. Then, as luck would have it, Catherine went on to win the prestigious Say Award that year. The video got a lot of attention from there and I started getting more commissions. Before I knew it, I was suddenly producing and directing music videos and video content full time. I was using my experience and understanding of music to reinterpret other people's music into film. It seemed to really kickstart my career as well. In 2017, I eventually got that film funding commission when Creative Scotland gave My Loneliness Is Killing Me the green light. It was my first time directing a film I hadn't written myself, but now I had all these tools in which to reinterpret someone else's words, find that important emotional connection, then really make it my own. Weirdly, I wouldn't be the filmmaker I am today if I hadn't been a musician first. I've now started directing drama for television with the likes of BBC Studios, and our film is screened at over 50 festivals worldwide, as well as winning us a couple of awards, including a BAFTA, which is insane.
Thank you all so much. Thank you.
It's been a long journey with a lot of tangents, I know, but these tangents really gave me opportunity to mature, grow, and learn various facets of storytelling. Those opportunities gave me so much life experience, as well as the tools that are so important to shaping my work that it is today. Thanks. Oh wait, sorry. I got caught monologuing my entire life story and forgot about the educational part of the video where I actually teach you some of the tips and techniques that I use to create my work. It would certainly be helpful, right? So here are my top 5 tips. These are obviously from a filmmaker's perspective, but hopefully they might be applicable to other disciplines that you might be focusing on. Number 1, don't be a dick. This is most important. It might seem obvious, but there are a lot of people out there that think being a director means shouting at people and finding ways to be mean to your actors, all in the name of your art. When filmmaking relies so heavily on working with others, it really pays to be nice. 2, time isn't relative, it's definitive. Film is one of those art forms that is entirely beholden to a tight schedule. When you've got an hour to shoot a scene from various angles, there's just no coming back to finishing it later. If not, at best, you've dropped a scene. At worst, you have a giant gaping hole in your film, and that's not good. 3, plan, plan, plan. You never have enough time to make a film, so do yourself a favour and plan as much as possible beforehand. Every decision you make in prep will save you time on set. You don't want to be consumed by last-minute problem-solving situations when all you want to be doing is working with your actors or perhaps your camera team. 4, don't be afraid to fail. This is relevant to all art. We're all afraid of making something that we think isn't going to work out or something that's going to be completely rubbish. But every first draft is most definitely going to suck. Almost every sketch won't be great until you go over those lines bolder and the picture becomes clearer. Or sometimes you need to start again, but you'll always learn from those mistakes. We only learn by failing, so go ahead and start failing so you can get to the good stuff. 5, don't go it alone. Filmmaking especially relies on working with other people, even more so those bigger, more ambitious projects. Do you really think that you can act, do makeup, costume, production design, sound, and operate the camera? If we offer support to each other, we can help each other become better artists. So remember, don't be a dick. So now you know who I am and you've seen some of my work, let me show you a couple of exercises that help me find inspiration and hopefully they might inspire you too. Okay, so first of all, you heard me talk about emotional connection earlier, and for me, everything starts with that. What do I feel when I read a script, or what do I feel when I'm trying to realize a character, or what do I feel when I'm listening to a piece of music? Then I can ask myself, what do I want to feel when I see that script, character, or piece of music as a film? The best way to illustrate this, we're going to watch a clip from My Loneliness Is Killing Me, and I'm going to break down some of the decisions I made based on my emotional connections to the source material. In this clip, we see one of our main characters, Jack, come home from the gym. I'd like you to list 3 things that you notice about this scene. It can be anything. The photography, the costume, the lighting, just anything. And what are these things telling us? Then after that, I'll go through a couple of points and let's just see if those match your interpretation. You ready? Okay, go.
Okay. I'm just back from the gym.
You sorted for dinner?
I don't know. Whatever. I think there's stuff in the fridge.
Don't know how long I'll be.
Cool.
There we go. Love you.
I love you.
Okay, so now we're going to give you an opportunity to pause the video and just take a couple of minutes to think about your answers. Right, so first off, we're faced with the image of a man walking into a dark and empty flat. His shoes echo as he walks over to the window, overlooking the city before having a telephone conversation with his husband, who, again, is working late. So, on an emotional level, the film is about loneliness. Yes, and I know it's in the title. So now we know this about the character, how can we fill the frame with things that illustrate his mindset, his loneliness? So here are three. 1. The window is a glass barrier to a busy outside world full of life, in contrast to his home, which is dark, sterile, and lifeless. 2. When he talks to his husband, his voice reverberates through the house. That creates the idea of an empty, lifeless, and cold space. But then, when we cut to the outside of the window, we hear all of that bustling city noise, like he's keeping everyone at arm's length. 3. When Jack pours himself a glass of whiskey, he clinks his glass on the other. And, of course, that's a nod to how much he misses his husband. Then, when he sits down and he starts clinking his wedding ring off his glass, then that obviously hints at what's going through his head. We used that idea as a constant motif throughout the entire film. That way, it kept the ghost of Jack's husband present throughout Jack's scenes. Okay, here's one last clip from the film. This is the opening scene. Take what we already know about the film's theme, loneliness, and what we learned about Jack as a character, and note down some observations. I'm just going to cover one key talking point, but go ahead and see what else you might unearth. Now, in this scene, larger-than-life Elliot is on a night on the town with some friends. Now, let's see what happens when he meets a certain someone. Ready? Okay.
Hey man. Hey. You got some nice moves.
You haven't seen the half of it.
Oh yeah?
You come here often?
Nah, not really my scene. Bit of a laugh though, eh? See the bar, yeah? Sorry. I'm into men, yeah?
Yeah, well, I wasn't looking for a proposal. Hi, darling.
Okay, so the main talking point is the colour. Did you notice? Look at this crazy use of colour in the lighting and the production design. I should point out that the toilet didn't even look like that either. We made it look like that. And why? Well, because Elliot is a flamboyant character and he's larger than life. We wanted to illustrate that by bathing him in colour. His life is also messy and out of control, so myself and the production designer decided to make his world wildly different to Jack's. Jack's world is cold, it's sparse, it's lifeless, lots of blues and lots of greys. Elliot's is the exact opposite. We did this by throwing in clutter and posters, and we just covered all the surface areas with some sort of texture and colour. Then that idea extended into how we lit Elliot too. With any luck, you'll have had different emotional connections to both Jack and Elliot. Without being told their backstories, we know that they are very different people experiencing their own struggles with loneliness in their own unique way. They're very different, but they're also the same. And that contrast becomes the crux of the drama for the rest of the film. If you'd like to see the full film, you can click the link below. Basically, my visual exploration of subtext are just metaphors. I'll try not to make this too boring for you, but using metaphors is a good way to explore the subtext of a script to really enrich your visual storytelling. This is what I like to call visual dialogue. And it's a huge part of making music videos because it's an entirely visual medium. There's nothing worse than getting a piece of music and then the lyrics are so vivid and visual that all you can think about is literal interpretation of those lyrics. So it's often good to use that as a springboard, but you don't want it to be derivative. So to finish off, we're going to explore an exercise that will have you thinking outside the box. We're going to look at an excerpt from my music video for Catherine Joseph's From When I Wake, The Want Is. And then afterwards, we're going to dissect how we took a piece of music and turned that into a film. Okay, firstly, what strikes me about Catherine's music is that it's so organic and stripped bare, or naked and vulnerable. I feel like there's this intimacy between her and the listener. Then she conjures up images of physical intimacy. She herself talked about the song being this idea that the want was this aching feeling when you can't be with your partner for whatever reason. So that actually gave me two bases of emotional connection. The themes of intimacy and loneliness. Yes, loneliness again. So let's take intimacy first. I decided I wanted to portray intimacy in different relationships. The idea that you get to know another person's body at such close proximity. The big jumping off point for me was shooting abstract macro images of couples being intimate, but we don't get the context of what it is we're seeing until we move out into a wider shot. To bring added intimacy, I boxed these characters into a 4:3 or square aspect ratio, opposed to a more traditional widescreen one. So that's what initially sparked the idea. In this next clip, we'll see what really gave the video its full narrative. And that was the loneliness aspect. First off, I can't really take credit for the swooping crane shot. That was something that came through chats with my cinematographer. It was pretty much his idea. But when I heard that distorted synth ascending with all that percussion, when I closed my eyes, I did get that sense of floating through space somehow, swooping up and then down. And through conversations and some janky iPhone tests, we came up with this concept of floating over couples, and then back through the floorboards, and then over the next couple. Back through the floorboards and on to the next couple. Lastly, it's in the line that Catherine sings, "How can I let go of all this love?" It broke my heart. That's what gave me this idea, that all our past relationships that shape who we are don't ever really die. They're always there, and although we might no longer love those people in that way anymore, the memory of being in love will never be forgotten. So that gave me this idea of past relationships being stored in a dusty old attic under plastic sheets like unused pieces of furniture. And it was that vision that became the glue that bonded everything together. Everything else brought to the table had to fit that narrative. So now I want you to form your own music video concept. I want you to think of a song. It could be your favourite song or one that you absolutely loathe. Once you have a song, I want you to take a moment to describe how it makes you feel. What's your emotional connection to that song? For example, Daft Punk's Get Lucky makes me think of that one summer I went on holiday with all my friends. Or Sia's Chandelier makes me want to kick down walls and scream in people's faces to make them see how freaking awesome I am. But anyway, it's all about how you feel. There are no wrong answers here. Next, I want you to really think about that emotional connection and try to pinpoint a theme. It can be dark like loneliness or loss, or it can be really uplifting like love, redemption, rebirth. You don't all have to be miserable gits like me. Alright, finally, now that you have a theme, I want you to list 3 to 5 images that you have in your mind that encompass that theme. For instance, loss can be as simple as an empty sofa or as barmy as dancing bedsheet ghosts. Or perhaps love could be your dog running along a beach or smooshing ice cream into your friend's face. Again, it's entirely your show, there are no wrong answers. Alright, so now you have a basis for your music video. Why not pop that song on later and go through these steps again and see how you might be able to form your own visual narrative. So that's a glimpse into my process in tackling film and music videos through forming a visual dialogue. Also, don't forget my 5 top tips. Don't be a dick, time is definitive, plan, don't be afraid to fail, and don't go alone. All that's left for me to say is a big thank you for watching this art guide. Hopefully it's inspired you on your own artist journey. I've been Courtney. Good night.